Moser joins us this morning. He is calling, of course, from the great state of Pennsylvania. We're thrilled to have him on. Hey, Eric, welcome back as always.
Hey, good morning, Jimmy. How are you?
I don't have a complaint in the world, my friend. The world is going really, really well. I can see Dre's making me a signal. We lost Eric, but we're gonna get him back on the air. They've been dealing with some problems over there at Pittsburgh Power with the new phone system. Eric called from his cell phone when we bounced him back on here. By the way, we're going to be talking about the new parts lineup and performance upgrades when we get Eric back on here. In the meantime, I want you to head over to RadioNemo.com and subscribe over there. And don't forget, Dave gave everybody a big thanks out there. We got a big announcement coming on Wednesday. A big announcement from Nemo Nation. So you want to make sure you tune in at 9:30 in the center, 10:30 in the east to hear all of that. And don't forget, Dave will be taking a lot of the ride with me on Thursday and Freaky, Feisty, Flinty Friday. He'll be joining us. Eric, you back with me? Do I got him back, Andre? Hey, man, welcome back. Welcome back, my phone friend. Basically, phones have turned into like the shade mechanic situations of the 1950s and 60s. It's like you feel like you have to jumpstart everything. How you doing?
Well, I can give you a couple stories on that. Like when I was working on cars in my younger age, I had a pretty lively temper. I'll be very politically correct. And there was some wrenches thrown. And today there's going to be a phone thrown in my office. I can see it already.
Oh my God, yeah. And the thing is, the difference is the tools that they built in the in the 70s and 80s. Actually, you could throw them all over the place and then pick them up and go back to work. The problem with tossing a phone these days is they deliberately. I think it's a design intention that they design the phones so that you get angry, smash them, and have to buy another one. That's my thought.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle.
It's a vicious circle. But let's go back to the shade mechanic thing. You are a guy, your generation, my generation, may be the last generation where there was a widespread sort of shade mechanic mentality. There's still plenty of us out there because there are people who are 10, 20 years older than us who are alive and well, Mallinson being one of them. But it's the truth. It's the fact that we may be, Generation X might be the last one where, look, and of course there's some groovy kids out there in their 20s and 30s who can move a wrench like there's no tomorrow. But those are people who want to do that thing. There was a time in this country, Eric, where there were plenty of people who didn't want to work on cars professionally who just knew how to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I watched my grandfather do that. Both my grandfathers actually very mechanically inclined. My dad, that's where I learned. I started driving cars when I was 8 years old. I started driving a stick shift at 9 years old, and I taught myself. I remember the first time I pulled up in a stick shift car, and my dad looked at me, where did that come from? I drove it here. How did you learn how to drive a stick? I said, well, I've been watching you. It's just something that comes natural, and I'm actually trying to teach that to my two boys. I'm the father of a 14 and a 16-year-old now, and my 16-year-old is starting to drive, and he's torn engines down with me. He's pulled engines and transmissions, and he's in the garage a lot with me, and I'm trying to teach him, even if he doesn't have the same passion for cars, which I don't think he does, and he may not at 16, I still want him to have the fundamentals to learn how to do this because I don't want him to be dependent on, well, this guy said I need this or that, and that's where a lot of our customers feel, I don't want to say trapped, but they kind of feel sort of trapped. There is kind of a good use for that term right now because a lot of people came from diverse backgrounds that they may or may not have had mechanics in their family or friends. And that's where we get our love for passion for mechanic. Love is a lot from the racing world too, or motorsports, whatever it is. But our experience helps promote our business better. And it also kind of trickles over into the parts industry. And that's what we're going to talk about today is a huge announcement we have here at Pittsburgh Power. And we're going to do a little bit of background, too, on some of the stuff we've used in the past and why we've used it.
Yeah, and really quickly, one of the things that is so important, and I'm actually pitching Pittsburgh Power here for our listeners out there, that's so important about you guys. A lot of people like to hide behind what I call technobabble or what I call gear groovy, where you talk in this sort of almost beatnik way around the machine, and then the customers get their eye glaze going on, which is often a really brutal situation. You guys have no problem explaining, even to the novice, look, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening. That's what's so crucial about having a partner that you work with who has who is willing to take the time. Because let's face it, I mean, even if you taught somebody who was a truck driver how to fix their own rig, I trust us, nobody's doing that. That's gatekeeping, man. Nobody is going to do that. Anybody that's willing to do that is then going to shift careers at that point, right? I mean, it's okay if the customer understands the ins and outs of everything going right and wrong with their rig, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a bad thing to try to learn that either, because even if you don't want to turn a wrench, it's still beneficial to help you in learning to diagnose your own problems, and even understand the problems that are getting repaired on your truck too. You know, when a guy in a shop tells you, hey, there's an upstream knock sensor that's bad, and you know, it's throwing stuff off, and the downstream one is a different reading, and you know that, oh, okay, that's before and after the after treatment system. And as long as you have like a roundabout way to understanding these things, it'll make your life a lot easier. And that's exactly what we do here, is we try to teach, promote, and make trucks run very dependable and reliable.
Before we actually hit the break, I want to set something up here too, because drag racing actually plays a part in this story. It's kind of funny. We're going from an interview with Scott Shea talking with Dave about Wolfman Jack to kind of having to segue into drag racing. We might as well just replicate. I got a poster arriving here over at Fastport Studio at the Degas House. I got a poster that's going to arrive over here for American Graffiti. I mean, I almost feel like we're kind of replicating it today on the show. There is a connection to drag racing here because it connects to your understanding of a lot of the gears and a lot of the machinery you're going to be talking about, and the new products as well. Can you kind of unpack that? And Dre, what we'll do is we'll call the break with at about 17:18. That'll give Eric some time to breathe here. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so I grew up in a car-rich environment. My dad was a hot rod. Really wasn't much of a street racer, but he definitely liked his fast cars. And I learned a very quick passion for that when I was even in elementary school. When I was 16, my dad owned a 65 Mercury Comet Cyclone, had a 289 hypo with a 4-speed, and that car was just the world to me because we had so many good memories in it. And I drove it all the way through high school and into college, and then I actually sold it and bought it back. And there's a whole backstory to that car too, but I got really interested into drag racing. Street racing and drag racing at an early age. And when I was in my early 20s, I'm going to say around 20, 21, 22, I bought a 1990 Mustang GT convertible and started playing around with it. And then the explosion was the aftermarket parts. You know, up until that point, everybody had used OEM. And then in the mid-'80s, when like the horsepower wars started coming out, I'm going to say that even with a chuckle, because horsepower wars back then was like 250, 225 horsepower.
Oh my God! Look out!
Yeah.
Oh my God!
That was, you know, and now you can go out and buy. I mean, my wife's SUV has 365 or 300. You know, it's crazy how technology has come around.
Dude, the Subarus that Dave owned can make the jump to light speed. I mean, it's crazy, man. It's just nuts. It's nuts to think about it like that. A lot of that stuff was just sound and fury signifying small horsepower. Sorry, Eric, continue. I'm just thinking about that. You're so right.
Well, I started with the basic fundamentals. I built the engine. I built the transmission. I changed the gears. It was fast. It was fun, but it wasn't enough. So I immersed myself in the world of superchargers, and I really got in depth with them. I started to learn a lot about engines. I learned about how to blow an engine up really fast when you don't know what you're doing tuning. And I was early enough, and I had my own business that I could afford and bounce back from it at the time. But I did NMRA for seven or 8 years on and off, National Mustang Racer Association. It was a division of IHRA. We went on a small circuit from like basically east of the Mississippi. Did that for a couple of years, had a lot of fun with it, traveled with a lot of people, met a lot of guys. And that is like our segue into today's topic and our big announcement is Pittsburgh Power is offering and launching our new PHD line of parts. And that's our Pittsburgh Heavy Duty. And these are a full line of aftermarket parts that we're going to use in-house and sell over the counter. And why I said that story was to kind of segue this bridge here, because even on my last drag car I just built I've had it for 7 years, but it was a nitrous-based small block Ford. It was a 427 cubic inch Windsor design, but there were 0 Ford Motorsport parts in the car. They were all aftermarket because what I was looking for, the OEM didn't offer. You know, I wanted to make around 1,000 horsepower, and I knew that factory components wouldn't hold up. So through racing and through R&D, you're going to find stuff that works, and sometimes it may work better than the OEM. Now, I'm not putting down OEM. I'm still a big advocate for OEM parts. In some applications, it comes down to your specific situation. And that's where we're kind of separated differently from a lot of other shops, is we actually take the time and interview you and try to figure out what is the best part and component for your needs. But we also take in mind your budget. You know, with the way the economy is, the way the rates are, things haven't rebounded the way we wanted them to just yet. It's coming around, but we still have to make sure that we make the best decisions we possibly can. And when we come back, I'm going to quiz you, Jimmy, to see who the oldest gearhead that's still alive that is an entrepreneur.
Okay, man, the challenge has been laid down. Let's see if I can actually make something happen with that. Eric Moser, of course, joins us for the Pittsburgh Power Pitstop here on Radio Nemo of North America. Go to radionemo.com and click on the button to subscribe to our YouTube page. We'll be back with a timestamp and more of Gearhead Eric.
Did you know it's extremely easy to join the Wreaths Across America mission to remember our fallen heroes, while at the same time honoring those who are currently serving our country and their families? Plus, you're helping to teach our younger generation about the value of freedom. With just one $17 donation to Wreaths Across America, you're sponsoring a fresh Maine Balsam Remembrance Wreath. They've really become a symbol of America's respect for those who bravely served and are no longer with us. To sponsor your wreath, just visit wreathsacrossamerica.org. That's wreathsacrossamerica.org.
You've got to be tired of expensive maintenance costs. Well, Max Mileage Fuel Catalyst can make a difference. Experience a longer engine and DPF lifespan, along with fewer regens, so your diesel runs longer and more efficiently. Pittsburgh Power's unique formula allows you to maximize the mileage from your parts while reducing downtime. Keep your vehicle performance at its best and make the smart choice. Visit PittsburghPower.com to order yours today.
Got a Lincoln motor and it's really souped up. That Model A body makes it look like a pup. It's got 8 cylinders and uses them all. Got overdrive, it just won't stall. With a 4-barrel carb and dual exhaust with 411 gears, you can really get lost. Got safety tubes, but I ain't scared. The brakes are good, the tires are fair.
It is currently 9:19 on the Pittsburgh Power Pit Stop. Hey, by the way, if you're looking for a way to get fuel to make it to Pittsburgh Power, you might want to check out the multi-service fuel car. They've been doing that gig since 1978, coming up on 50 years. If you're an over-the-road trucking company looking for quality customer service, generous lines of credit, and a nationwide network of fuel-saving truck stop locations at 919, you might want to head over to neverrollalone.com. You also want to go to pittsburghpower.com, by the way. Those guys know what's going on. They actually can work both with what you want to happen in your truck and also inside of your budget, as Eric was saying. Eric, I'm going to just kind of pitch this out here because I have a couple of ideas who you might be talking about, one of which, of course, is the famous, infamous big chin that is known as Jay Leno. And the other person I was actually thinking of is that there is a stealth billionaire. We call these guys stealth billionaires. I know a couple of them. Have you ever heard of George Joseph, who's 102 years old and was a former flight navigator during World War II?
I have not. That's interesting, though.
He's a big engine tinkerer to this very day. He currently is the world's oldest billionaire. I know that because I'm obsessed with how billionaires make their billions. The only person I could think of was Leno, but who are you talking about?
Well, this guy's got you beat by probably about a year. This gentleman is 103 years young, and he's going to be 104 in July. His name is Ed Iskandarian, and if any of our Gearhead customers out there recognize that name, they probably know that he started Iski camshafts. He was a big gearhead back in the 40s and 50s and developed his camshaft lines, and he's still kicking today. Great guy, great product, but that's how a lot of these good aftermarket parts companies came about. I met some of these guys face-to-face when I ran NMRA circuit for a little bit. Johnny Urist, who owns Hellion Turbos. Billy Glidden, who was the son of Bob Glidden, famous drag racer back in the 70s and 80s, who Billy Glidden carried a parakeet with him, like a toucan or whatever, a great big bird, whatever it was. Actually made a mess on the hood of my car at one of the racetracks. That's a different story, too. He almost became barbecue dinner that night. I was pretty mad about that.
By the way, Eric, really quickly, and I knew I recognized the name Iskandarian. I actually sometimes follow what goes on at the Performance Racing Hall of Fame. And Iskandarian, I think, is a recent inductee.
Yes.
And now that I look it up, he is actually. And, of course, every picture, the moment you type in his name on Google, guys, the first picture you get is him as a young man with a big black mane, shock of hair, leaning on some kind of souped-up razor from back in the day. Wow. He's been doing this for a long time, hasn't he?
Yeah, longer than I've been around, for sure. And through these developments, and we've done it, too, through the past, is you find stuff that works. Like, I'm going to use WD-40. We've all used that. And do you know what WD-40 stands for?
5 minutes ago I could have told you. I swear to God I could have told you 5 minutes ago, and now that I'm on the spot, I'm kind of scrambling. Tell me what it stands for.
So WD-40 stands for Water Disbursement 40, and the 40 signifies the 40th attempt. So that means they tried 39 times to get something to work, and it failed. So sometimes through trial and error, we figure out what works with us.
I call it Preparation A. I'm sorry. I got that from Austin Powers, the whole thing when they finally get to Preparation H.
So I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper into this aftermarket stuff before the break here. We come up. But our PhD line we're ready to roll it out full tilt. Some of the parts, and this is where we've done our R&D, but some of the parts actually use the same foundry as OEM. Specifically, some of the Caterpillar cylinder heads. I've talked to a bunch of different people. We've been meeting with people for months now. And a lot of times you're going to buy stuff that, I'm going to buy this brand. Well, that brand may be not really made by them. They may be, farming it out. And it happens all the time. Turbochargers are the biggest thing, too. When you go to buy a turbocharger, there's only a handful of foundries in the world that actually forge them. And depending on who you buy it from, you may be buying it by, the direct supplier or maybe a reseller or even a reseller of a reseller. And everybody that gets their hands involved is going to take a little piece of the pie. So that's why we went straight to some of the manufacturers on this, and we're buying directly to be very competitive with this. We're also competitive with our shop rate. Our shop rate's $155 an hour. I just talked to a guy last week that said that the dealership in his local area was $275 an hour, and if you travel a little bit closer towards the bigger city that he was from, it was up over $300. And that's a lot of money for hardworking people out there like yourselves that, sometimes going to the dealership is good, but sometimes it can really cost you too. We also have trained certified technicians in Cummins, Detroit, and Caterpillar on staff all the time. We are a Cummins dealer, of course, but now you can get the quality rebuild for a fraction of the price with our expertise. And there's different levels of rebuilds too.
Let me, Eric, really quickly, I want to say something here to kind of back this up. The only reason I'm not shocked at your rate per hour, the only reason I'm not shocked at the number of people you have on staff is that I already knew it. And I was laughing because, Eric sends me very comprehensive notes and really kind of takes care to kind of set up the show as we kind of go through it together. Because as you guys guess, I'm not the expert Eric is. So there are things that I have to, as I get ready for the show, kind of go back and double check and make sure that I can follow the jazz that he and particularly Mallinson, who gets in the weeds, who decides to start on step 15 rather than number 1. But what's really kind of cool here is the fact that I thought to myself as I saw that 155, I said, man, I still haven't gotten over that. And a lot of that is due to the fact of your relationships you have with suppliers, that because you guys have direct access, you're able to keep your costs down, which you then pass on to the customer. I got that right, correct?
You nailed it, right on the head. And that's what takes time to develop relationships and build rapport with a lot of our parts suppliers, our sales reps. Just this morning, I had a gentleman that sent an oil sample in, and the United States Postal Service lost his sample. they destroyed the card, they couldn't get there, but I was able to find it based off of what he told me. I can search through and I know who to talk to and stuff. And that's where we've kind of streamlined our customer processing with our manufacturers. We have very good relationships with them. If there's ever a problem, which, parts fail, let's face it, no matter who you buy a part from, there's still a possibility it's going to fail. What matters most is after the sale. How are you treated? How was the time frame? How was the warranty process? That's what really sets us apart. Sometimes, the economy's been down, so the phone calls aren't as much as they used to be. But at one point, we were taking 60 to 70 phone calls per day per person. It's still it's pretty close to that now, but it's not, as high as it was. But you talk to a lot of those people and they say, hey, I bought a part from company X and, I've been waiting for 2 weeks to get a phone call back. And that is so frustrating on both sides. It's frustrating for the customer, of course, because I've been on that side of the counter. But it's also frustrating for me because it really puts a bad name out there for good companies. And that's what I want to stress to people out there. Don't associate all of the companies out there as the same, because we all are different. We do publications with magazines, we do podcasts, we do this radio show. We do a lot of services too. The truck shows. We were in Louisville this year. Bill and I are going to be in Nashville later on this year at the NASTEC show. We do a lot of that for our business, but also to help our customers. And when you can connect to a customer one-on-one, especially like at the shows when it's a little bit more, you get a little bit more face time and you get the one-on-one. Like when you came to see me at Louisville this year, that means a lot to me. When somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I heard you on the radio, I heard you on Nemo show, or, I've been listening to you guys on the podcast or whatever, that means a lot to me, having somebody come up and take their personal time just to introduce themselves when I've never met them before, but that means I had an impact on them. And good, bad, or indifferent, whatever the impact was, I'm just humbled. It really makes me feel good that I can help people. And that's one of the biggest rewards I get here, too, is the problem solving on the phone. When somebody calls me up and says, hey, my truck's doing this, and I can help them out, it makes me feel so good. Because everybody's a winner at the end of the day with that. And through our R&D and through the phone calls, through talking with customers, that's how we've become where we are since 1977 when we started. It's a growing relationship and a growing development company that we're always trying to broaden our horizons and move on. And this is one of the next steps. If we were having this conversation in 2002, we'd be talking about EGRs, and boy, this is a whole new ball of wax. We're going to have VG turbos and everything.
You're getting really good at this, Eric. You brought us right to the break, by the way. Tara the Turtle says her grandfather's in his 70s and still drag racing his 69 Camaro. We'll be right back with Eric Moser. Go to PittsburghPower.com.
Now, back to the Dave Nemo Show on SiriusXM's Road Dog Trucking Radio.
What happens off the air stays off the air. It's why sometimes we don't record things. Eric Moser, Phone Master Dre, and myself mixing it up and tearing it up over here on the Dave Nemo Show. Go to RadioNemo.com and click on that YouTube page. You want to subscribe over there. We're going to get portions of this up too as well. I'm actually letting Tara know that of our wonderful interview here with Eric Moser. We got a whole bunch of phone calls coming in. You can join the conversation at 615-292-6366. I'm calling this the American Graffiti Edition because in the last half hour before this segment got going, Dave and Scott Shea talked about Wolfman Jack. You're going to want to check that out. And we've been talking about drag racing and a whole bunch of other stuff. The Turtle's grandpa, over 70 years old, is still hitting that Camaro. Eric, that's the question I wanted to ask you before we get back to the action that we're talking about with your new lineup, all the kind of great stuff you guys are offering over there. So when you go over there, and we're talking about a 103-year-old guy kind of zooming it up in Zoomtown, when you still make a way over to drag racing, do you ever see any geezers in golf pants actually still tearing up the track?
Everybody that owns a Corvette, yes. They got a fanny pack, white New Balance, and jorts, jean shorts. Yeah, that is so typical.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. What happened to style? What happened to style, man? Come on. Jesus.
Guys, drag racers don't care about style. They just want to win. And I'll tell you what, that's one of my most feared ones when I get paired up against is some of the older guys, because even though there's old blood running through them, they still have a really big fire, and they are some of the toughest competitors I've ever been up against, with sandbagging and being the reaction times are like nailed on the tree, right off the line. But you don't ever want to underestimate somebody like that.
I keep laughing about it, Eric. It's like, oh, no, you can teach me something, Sonny. I don't know nothing about nobody. And then all of a sudden they just literally drop the hammer and basically take off at the speed of light, turn it into the Millennium Flippin' Falcon. Before we actually get to talking about all the other stuff you got to cover here, Eric, we got Michael on the phone. He is calling from Texas. We're going to just drop him in. Just get him in here. Let's get Michael into the game and get to the conversation. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
How y'all guys doing, man, today?
Good.
All right. I just wanted to ask, I don't know if it's true or not. I heard that Cummins is coming out with a new engine, with a new overhand cam. They're going to have the fuel filter and oil filter on the driver's side, and they're supposed to be getting rid of even though it's going to still use depth, they're supposed to be getting rid of some of the SCR things on there. Is that true or not? That's what I was trying to find out.
That is somewhat true, Michael. And Cummins is going to release this engine in 2026. It's their latest platform to meet the new tier of emissions, but it's also their latest attempt to suffice the customer. And what I mean by that is they've actually listened to you and me. They've heard our yelling, why do you make this thing so hard to work on? Why is it so complicated? And they've taken all the engineering flaws out of it. I am super excited to see this engine come out. So it's going to be based on still a single cam overhead design. It is going to have a 48-volt alternator that is massive. It looks like a small turbine on the bottom driver's side, left side of the engine, that's going to power the entire truck, but also electric grid heaters in the aftertreatment system, because that's the number one failure in the aftertreatment and even in the engine is carbon and soot. And that's why we want to use the max mileage to get rid of the carbon and soot. But Cummins has also come out with another step to help improve the reliability, and that's getting the heat inside the aftertreatment system without affecting the engine. One of the biggest complaints we had was the higher oil temperatures and the higher operating temperatures on these newer engines. It's nothing for me to talk to a guy that, hey, my truck's running down the road, the coolant temperatures are at 205 or 208, and my oil temperature is at 230, 235, whatever it may be. And in my mind, as a drag racer and an engine builder, I really don't like that. But when I have to put on my Cummins hat, here, I understand why they do it, because heat is a number one enemy of carbon and soot. So when the engines are running at lower speeds, lower RPMs, lower temperatures, it's just a breeding ground for carbon and soot to conglomerate and start growing and polluting everything up. So that's why Cummins is going to make these grid heaters. If you're driving a 2000, I want to say 17 to current Cummins, you may have experienced where the engine wants to kind of jump up a little bit at idle, specifically like when you're going through a parking lot or something, it just kind of jumps up. And that's called passive de-soot assist mode. And what it's doing is it almost feels like the truck wants to go into a regen, but it doesn't. And all it's doing is trying to raise the temperature so that it's not too cold in the aftertreatment system. So they're going to incorporate all this to make it more reliable and dependable. One of the biggest things that I'm excited about is the EGR cooler. They're moving it up on top of the valve cover on the passenger side. So now it doesn't take a plumber and a carpenter and everybody else to try to get in there and change the seals on it or the element itself, that you can actually get to it. It's right out in the open. So they're simplifying it.
Eric, I just wanted to say really quickly, what an engineer over at Cummins would tell you was, no, it was perfect. You people just had to have it simplified for you. But that's just the engineers talking. I'm sorry.
Well, the only other question I want to ask, say if guys with trucks mine from 2020 on up, instead of getting their engines rebuilt, would it be easy to get that engine in that truck, or would we have to stay with the same Cummins type of engine?
You can always upgrade, Michael. Like if you have an older tier of emissions and you want to go up, you can. But I don't know what the complexity would be. I haven't even physically seen one of these or put my hands on it yet, but I'm going to imagine it would be quite a feat because of the electronics. Running a 48-volt system, I'm not sure if the stuff inside the cab is going to be compatible to yours, or if they're reducing the voltage down, like if they're going to run like a standard alternator along with this larger alternator / generator to power everything on the truck, and then this is just a standalone unit for the after treatment heaters. I'm not 100% certain on that yet. I'm assuming they're going to run a standard alternator alongside this big alternator / generator, so that the trucks are basically staying the same. That way they don't have to reinvent the wheel. But I don't know what it would cost, if it would be cost effective to jump up like that.
Right, because I got a 2023. When the time comes for me to get my engine rebuilt, I was wondering, could I just put that engine in instead, and keep on pushing from there?
It wouldn't be cost effective compared to like letting us do your in-frame. We are a Cummins certified dealer. We do a lot of in-frames here, and now with our expansion of these aftermarket parts, I'm very price competitive. There are some rebuild estimates I've done in the last couple of weeks for people that I even looked at them and thought I did something wrong. Like, these prices aren't right. I double, triple check myself, and that's what it is. We're saving people a lot of money right now.
Yeah, I got you. Understandable, man. Understandable.
But by the way, Eric, I don't know if you know this, but Michael and I actually grew up in the same stomping grounds. Michael and I actually figured out that we knew each other from back in the day. Absolute true story. Hey, Michael, by the way, get your butt back to New Orleans so we can see you over here at the studio at some point, okay?
I will do, brother, as soon as I can.
Be safe, Michael. We got to take a break here. Thank you so much. Michael's always a great call. Finest hour, Michael. Eric Moser joins us this morning. We're going to take a quick break, come back on the other side, do a little time stamp, see where the road takes us. It is the Pittsburgh Power Pitstop. I'm sorry, what was that you were saying, Eric, over the break about not being able to carry on? Yeah, okay, thought so. We'll be right back.
It's a fact. You may drive a rig all night, but it just ain't running right till you got a blazing smokestack.
Freight is moving at Creek Carrier and Schaefer Trucking. We are growing, and our customers keep growing with us. If you want to be part of a company that appreciates what you do and rewards you for it, you should check out Creek Carrier Corporation. We're looking for safe drivers that have at least 1 year's experience and take their jobs seriously. Then we reward you with great pay and some real serious benefits. Freight's moving, so check out Creed and Schaefer today. Go to creekcarrier.com and find the right job for you.
You know Sap Brothers will beat any competitor's advertised price on tires, so hold on to that fifth wheel, because when you buy 4 Salem S624 EFTs, the perfect line haul trailer tire, mounted at Sap Brothers, your price is an amazing $199.99, originally priced at $299.99, and prices are good through June 30, 2025 while supplies last. Save on 4 or more at Sap Brothers, and nobody's going to beat that price. Salem Tires, advanced compound technology for maximum mileage and rolling resistance without compromise. When you think tires, think Sap Brothers.
Next time you talk to your tax preparer, ask about the 5 P's: preparation, projection, protection, planning, and practical application. And while they're staring into space, pick up your phone, hit pound 250, and say John Turner. Because with John Turner, you have a tax planning advocate who will dig deep to uncover every savings you deserve. Software and storefront tax services will get you to first base, but John Turner gets you home. Pound 250, say John Turner, the only name you need.
You may drive a rig all night, but it just ain't running right till you got a blazing smokestack.
Let me take care of a trifecta of sponsors here for us, Dre. It is currently 9:47. If you want to look really cool doing any drag racing, you might want to head over to ShadyRays.com. They've got your back with lost and broken protection programs. ShadyRays.com, by the way, also brings us the weather. Just really want to quickly tell you that on Interstate 10 in Fort Stockton, it's fair. 80 degrees, northwest winds hit 28 miles an hour. It's mostly cloudy in Beaumont, where it's 85. Colleen Gray is 82 on 14, where there's light rain. There's light rain over to gust to DFA on 20, where it's currently 79 degrees. 40, Kingman, 63, northern winds between about 20 and 25 miles an hour. Conditions are fair. Klein's Corner, it's the same wind, it's the same condition, but it's also 36 degrees. How's that for whiplash? 44, Wichita Falls is 82. Southern winds hit 35 with a few high clouds. On 70, you're talking about Red Cliff Pass, where it's 16 with light snow. Seems to be an ongoing theme there. Rock Springs on 80 is currently overcast with western winds getting to 33. It's 44. Rawlins has the same wind, a little bit to the southwest, about 20. Light snow over there. It's 23 degrees. Teterboro, by the way, is 58. Northwest winds hit 32. It is fair in that neck of the woods. Just really quickly, Willimantic is 53. Northwest winds hit 31. It's overcast. And then there's a lot of stuff partly cloudy, a lot of 50s and 60 conditions over in the northeastern part of the country. Boston, Dean Croaks country, 54 northwest winds, 41 miles an hour on the gust. Let's just wrap that up for ShadyRays.com. Head on over there and check them out. It is currently 9:48, and it also means you should head on over to truckdown.com. They serve all 50 states and the provinces. They connect trucking companies with service providers like our friends at Pittsburgh Power to reduce delays, return to the road, and get you back to earning. The time is now 9:48. The time is now for truckdown.com. And head over to PittsburghPower.com, guys, by the way, and we'll keep this conversation going. Hey, Eric, welcome back to our American Graffiti edition of the Dave Nemo Show. We got about 12 minutes here, and you got some other stuff to cover, so why don't we dive in and dig in? Where you want to pick up?
Well, I'm going to put my lab coat on for a second, and we're going to talk about cylinder heads and the different parts we can offer now, too, with our PhD line. Most cylinder heads out there are manufactured in a handful of refiners, like we said earlier, and they're all made to standard OEM spec. But one thing that our aftermarket company is offering us is Inconel valves. Inconel valves are made from mnemonic 751 alloy, which is better heat resistance in material than even stainless steel. Inconel it contains nickel, chromium, and iron. And mnemonic generally contains at least 50% nickel, which is a very hardened metal. You know, inside the engine, you're only going to find that in a crankshaft and a camshaft, something that takes a lot of abuse. It also contains 20% chromium, which is like your piston rings, which, again, take a lot of abuse. So, and it's also going to have other elements like titanium and aluminum. But mnemonic has more tensile strength at higher temperatures. And it's also higher corrosion resistance when exposed to like salt water and chemicals and everything that you might breathe in through the air filters. Like I see that every once in a while, like on an oil sample where, sodium is really high. And we had one guy that I can recall offhand that we were talking and trying to diagnose this, and I couldn't understand where the salt was coming from. And then when I looked up his address, he was based out of the Bay Area in California, and he ran right up the coastline. And that was all the salt air coming in through there, and that's why his were a little bit elevated. So this is going to be more resistant and a better product and a stronger piece right from the beginning. And that's how we're able to achieve better fuel mileage and longer running trucks is through R&D like this, like specifically from our background. And a lot of people call me and say, hey, I want to get better fuel mileage. And how do I achieve that? And usually I reply back to is we want to turn the horsepower and torque up a little bit. And a lot of customers kind of get confused on that. Like, well, wait a minute. If I go out and buy like a sports car or a hot rod, I'm not looking for miles per gallon. I'm just looking for smiles per gallon or, the fun of the car or truck or whatever.
I've never heard that. I have never heard that before, man. Sign me up for that. I'm in. God almighty.
Well, I'm full of them, Jimmy. Just totally full of them. But let me give you a little bit of a scenario. So let's say you have two identical trucks, and I mean everything is identical, even down to parasitic losses and the compression, everything. The only difference, one truck is 400 horsepower and the other truck is 600 horsepower. If you put them at the bottom of the same hill, the 600 horsepower truck gets up to the top first. And not because they're drag racing, it's just because it makes more power and torque. Torque is what carries you up over that hill. If you look inside the cabs at both drivers, who's going to be pressing on the throttle pedal more? The lower horsepower one, because it takes more throttle to push a lower horsepower up over that hill. So two things here. Number one, the more you push on that pedal, the worse fuel mileage you're going to get. Number two, the amount of time on that hillside is considered to be what we call workload. So a higher horsepower truck will do less workload and it will get better fuel mileage. So now there is a crossover point, because some of the guys out there that are gearheads and, horsepower junkies like myself, like, whoa, yeah, hold the phone there, buddy, because if we build like a 1,200 horsepower truck, it's not going to get fuel mileage. I agree with that. There is a threshold. Once you step over a certain line, the power keeps climbing, but the fuel mileage crosses over and starts declining at that point. But in most of our modern day engines, whether it be a 12, 13, or 15 liter engine, even 16 liters, the magic number is usually between 500, 550 on the lower liter displacements, up to like 650, 700, and these are flywheel numbers, on the bigger liter displacements. And the torque is anywhere between like 1850, 1950, all the way up to like 22 to 2300 foot-pounds of torque. So we can set these trucks up to run extremely well, less shifting, less, stress on mental taxing, because a lot of people don't realize that either. Like my previous job, I did a lot of physical labor. I was an electrician for a beer bottling manufacturer. Actually, the silk screening, printing on beer bottles, but it was a lot of physical demands, high temperatures, high heat, moving around, crawling in and out of spaces you didn't want to be. And then I took a desk job. I was more exhausted at the end of the day mentally than I was physically.
Yep.
And that actually carries over in trucking. A lot of guys out there that don't realize this, but if you have to move that shifter 38 times a day versus 12 times a day, it's less mental thinking, less mental aptitude. It just makes it much more pleasurable to drive, but also easier on the mind. And that makes for a much better driving experience, a much better lifestyle for that matter too. So we want to make sure that the truck is set up properly, with the breathing side of it, like our exhaust manifolds, our fleet air filters. On the older trucks, we can put our free-flowing mufflers on them, but anything newer than 2008, of course, we don't have mufflers. We have the DPFs. But there's a lot of performance parts that we manufacture for our standards. And we keep these in stock all the time. Another thing is crankshaft dampeners. Bruce is a big advocate about that, and I've seen firsthand damage. Yeah,
big.
When I started thinking, those things don't go bad, and I started doing research and looking into it my own and listening to Bruce. It's amazing. It is really amazing that people don't understand the consequences of not changing your dampener and what it can do. And it is a maintenance item. And it's actually shocking to me how many people on my side of the counter in the truck service world, and I've talked to service managers before, I've talked to shop foremen, that, they don't go bad. There's nothing in them to go bad. And then my follow-up question is, what do you think is inside those? And
everything goes bad. Everything goes bad. There is nothing. If they can find the object other than the Rocky Mountains, which, by the way, have worn down over time, if they can find an object that doesn't go bad and doesn't wear down, please let us know, because we probably can power the planet with it. Good God Almighty. Of course they go bad. Of course they go bad. I'm sorry, Eric. Go on, please.
No, you're good, buddy. But that's where we've done a lot of R&D. We brought our products to the market over the past 4 decades. This is something that we've prided ourselves in, that we can make a good, reliable engine. And some of the other things that can happen is listening to influencers, paid influencers. Let me rephrase that. Paid influencers can have a negative effect in our industry as well, because they're collecting a paycheck. If I opened up my restaurant and let's say it was Eric's Barbecue, and you were a paid sponsor, you're going to promote it. If somebody doesn't like it, or if somebody gets sick at it or something, it's no skin off your back, because you have no skin in the game. That's where you got to watch a lot of these guys out on the internet that can do a paid influencer sponsorship. It's kind of, just do your homework is what I'm getting at.
And the other thing is the fact that also go to influencers who do their homework, because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to say the name. There have been people that have offered to come on and sponsor the show with some really big numbers, and Dave and I took a look at them and went, no, 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 no. That's important too. Make sure the influencer does their diligence before you trust the influencer as well.
Yeah, because we have all the skin in the game. You know, even our new lineup, PhD, Pittsburgh Heavy Duty, it's our name on the box. It's our name on the line here. You know, that's why we want to perfect it and make it, you know, worthwhile for somebody to come and do business with us. And not knowing what you're building is another big thing that I talk to a lot of people about, where they start to dive down the rabbit hole of, you know, I want 1,000 horsepower and I want, you know, 13 miles a gallon. And there's some people out there that promote stuff like this, and it's not 100% accurate. Some of them do get very good results, but the majority of them, maybe not so much. And when you start mixing and matching these pieces, you can get into trouble. And my biggest example is the marine stuff. When a guy calls me and says, or a girl, sorry, if a person calls me and says, hey, I want to build a 800 horsepower engine, I want to put a marine cam, marine this, marine, my first question is this for competition? And are you going to be driving it on the street? If they say yes for competition and no on the street, then yes, by all means, let's look into this. But the marine parts are engineered for an engine completely different than what you're doing on the street. Now, that being said, I'm not against them. There are a lot of people out there that can make these things work and work very, very well. But you have to know what you're doing when you match these pieces together. If you don't know what you're doing, that's where you're going to get in trouble. I've personally talked to a lot of guys out there with 800 horsepower marine cams, marine injectors. They love them. They get good fuel mileage. They run great. It's the people that just look in at different articles and different online forums and say, I'll take this one and this one and this one, but you don't know how they work together. That's where you're going to get in trouble.
We're going to end it there, Eric. One of the things, too, is that the more pieces you add, the more harder time you have telling what actually has gone wrong, because suddenly the combinations don't play so well together. Eric Moser joins us, as he always does, in the Pittsburgh Power Pitstop. Guys, go to pittsburghpower.com. You can find out all the new groovy stuff headed your way. PhD, piled high and deep? Nope, not at all. It's actually a doctorate in how to take care of your truck. Thank you, Eric. We'll talk soon. Hold on tight.